Good night, this is Fumi Sleepy Time Stories. Tonight's bedtime story is about to begin.
Once upon a time, there was a man who had 3 sons. The youngest was called Little Fool, and he was often teased and mocked by his 2 older brothers, always receiving disdainful looks. One day, the eldest son went into the forest to chop wood. His mother gave him a delicious large cake and a bottle of wine, worried that he might get hungry after working hard. As he walked into the forest, he met a little old man with white hair. The old man greeted him and then said, "Please, give me a small piece of your cake and a sip of your wine. I am so hungry and thirsty that I can hardly bear it." The selfish eldest son replied, "Why should I share my cake and wine with you? If I give some to you, I won't have enough for myself. Get lost." With that, he shot the old man a scornful look and walked away. He then started chopping wood. After a while, he became tired, and missing his aim, struck his own arm with the axe. He had no choice but to return home to tend to his wound. A few days later, the second son also set off to the forest to chop wood. His mother gave him a large cake and a bottle of wine, just as she had done with the eldest son. He too met the little old man, who pleaded for a small piece of cake and a sip of wine. The second son harshly replied, "I will never share my food and drink with you. If I do, I won't have enough for myself." The old man stood there pitifully with his hands hanging at his sides, but the second son ignored him and walked away. While chopping wood, he suffered the same fate as his older brother. He missed the tree and struck his own leg with the axe. He had to go home to be treated. A few days later, Little Fool said to his father, "Father, I also want to go chop wood." His father replied, "Look at your brothers. They are much better at chopping wood than you, yet they still ended up injuring themselves. You have never chopped wood before, so you shouldn't go." But Little Fool kept begging his father until he finally agreed. Unlike his brothers, his mother gave him only a small loaf of bread, baked in the ashes, and a bottle of sour beer for lunch. When he arrived in the forest, he met the little old man, who greeted him and said, "Please, give me a little piece of your bread and a sip of your drink." Kind-hearted Little Fool replied, "Sit down. I only have this loaf of bread baked in the ashes and some sour beer, but if you don't mind, we can share it together." So they sat on a large stone together. But when Little Fool took out his humble meal, the loaf had transformed into a large, delicious cake, exuding a sweet aroma, and the sour beer had turned into fine wine. After they ate and drank to their fill, the old man said, "You have a good heart and shared your meal with me, so I shall reward you. See that old tree over there? Go and chop it down. You will find something valuable inside." Little Fool obediently walked over and chopped down the tree. The moment it fell, a large goose flew out, its feathers made entirely of pure gold. At the same time, the old man disappeared without a trace. Little Fool picked up the Golden Goose and arrived at an inn for the night. The innkeeper had 3 daughters, and when they saw such a beautiful golden goose, they were extremely curious. The eldest daughter thought, "Maybe I can secretly pluck one of its golden feathers." So, when Little Fool was out of the room, she sneaked in and grabbed the goose's wing. But to her surprise, her fingers became stuck to the goose, and she couldn't pull them away. A little while later, the second daughter entered, also wanting to steal a feather. The moment she touched her sister, she became stuck to her as well. Then, the youngest daughter arrived. The two older sisters anxiously shouted, "For heaven's sake, don't come any closer!" But she didn't listen and rushed over to see what was happening. The moment she touched her sisters, she too became stuck. And so, the three sisters spent the night clinging to the Golden Goose. The next morning, Little Fool picked up the goose and set off again, completely unaware of the three girls stuck to it, who had no choice but to follow behind him, stumbling and staggering as they went. As they reached the outskirts of the town, they encountered a priest. Seeing this bizarre procession, the priest exclaimed, "How shameful! 3 mad girls chasing after a young man! What a disgrace!" Saying this, he grabbed the youngest daughter, intending to pull her away. But the moment he touched her, he too became stuck and had to run along with them. Not long after, they met the church warden. Seeing the priest following behind 3 girls, he was utterly astonished. "Reverend, where are you rushing off to? Don't forget, you have a sermon to give today." Shouting this, he ran up and grabbed the priest's sleeve. But just like the others, he became stuck and had to follow along. As this peculiar procession of 6 people and a golden goose marched forward, 2 farmers carrying rakes walked by. The priest called out, pleading for their help to break free. But the moment the farmers touched the church warden, they too became stuck. Now, 7 people were running behind Little Fool. Eventually they arrived at a city where the king lived. The king had a beautiful daughter who had never once smiled. It seemed as if nothing in the world could make her laugh. So, the king had declared that whoever could make his daughter laugh would have her hand in marriage. Little Fool heard of this and decided to take the Golden Goose to see the princess. Inside the royal hall, the princess sat on a chair. The moment she saw the 7 completely unrelated people strung together, she burst into uncontrollable laughter. Little Fool then asked the king for the princess's hand in marriage. However, the king did not want his beloved daughter to marry a foolish-looking young man, so he set a series of impossible tasks. The first challenge: if Little Fool wanted to become the king's son-in-law, he had to find a man who could drink an entire wine cellar dry. Little Fool recalled the mysterious old man and returned to the forest. He found the old man sitting there with a sorrowful face. Little Fool approached and asked what was wrong. The old man replied, "I am dying of thirst, but nothing quenches it. Water doesn't satisfy me, and even after drinking a whole barrel of wine, it felt like just a single drop in the desert." "I can help you," Little Fool said. "Come with me, and I promise your thirst will be quenched." He led the old man to the castle where the wine cellar was opened. The old man eagerly drank barrel after barrel, and by sunset he had emptied the entire cellar. Little Fool once again proposed to marry the princess. Upon hearing this, the king was furious. "A foolish boy whom everyone laughs at wants to become my son-in-law? What a ridiculous dream!" So the king set an even harsher condition. Little Fool had to bring a man to the city who could eat an entire mountain of bread. Little Fool returned to the forest, to the place where he had cut down the old tree. There, he saw a middle-aged man sitting with a tightly fastened belt around his waist, looking troubled. "I have finished an entire oven full of black bread," the man said to Little Fool, "but I am still hungry. How can such a small amount satisfy me? My stomach remains empty. You see, to avoid hunger, I have to tighten my belt like this." Hearing this, Little Fool was overjoyed and said, "Come with me. I'll take you to a place where you can eat as much as you like, until you're completely full." Little Fool led him to the city, where a massive pile of bread stood, as tall as a small mountain, baked from flour gathered from all over the kingdom. The middle-aged man, unable to resist the delicious aroma of the bread, immediately began to eat. He devoured it with great pleasure, and in less than a day, the entire mountain of bread had vanished without a trace. For the third time, Little Fool asked to marry the princess, but the king still refused, making more excuses. This time, the king demanded that Little Fool bring him a ship that could sail both on water and on land. "Bring me such a ship," he said, "and you may marry my daughter." Without hesitation, Little Fool set off again for the forest and found the old white-haired man. The old man said, "I drank an entire wine cellar for you, and I ate a mountain of bread for you. Now, I am willing to give you a ship that can travel on both water and land. I do all this because you were kind to me." Then the old man gifted Little Fool an amphibious ship. When the king saw it, he could no longer come up with any more impossible challenges to stop him. At last, he had no choice but to grant Little Fool's request. Little Fool and the princess were married. After the king passed away, Little Fool inherited the throne and ruled the kingdom with wisdom and prosperity. you
you.